Episode 2 of Wedding Scene. I'm Morgan.
I'm Amy.
And today we're going to talk about the differences in packages that wedding planners have. And we're going to talk about it from our perspective because we are wedding planners. Everybody does it a little bit differently, but this is how we do it. And then when we suggest you book based on what package you are interested in.
Exactly.
So we'll start with the different types that most people offer, which is a full service planner, and then a partial planner, and then a day of coordinator. Those are the three biggest ones. For a full service planner, you want to book them like they're the first vendor.
Exactly. They'll help you find venues and things, so they are the first vendor that you really need.
And they're going to help, like that is what I specialize in, and I'm going to help you from everywhere from like start with your budget, which is something that we talked about last time, and all the way through the entire process. So I think it's really important to be vetting those folks. The easiest way to vet folks is like do a little light Googling, right? Like if we've been around for a minute, you will find us on the Google. And then you'll be able to read some reviews. You'll be able to like see, look on The Knot. The Knot is a great resource, especially if you are traveling and you're going to get married somewhere else, but you're looking for good vendors in your area. And then if you have fallen in love with a venue or a space, sometimes they will have preferred coordinators. So it's sort of like the chicken and the egg. If you love a space and you're certain that it's going to be the one, then if they suggest coordinators, kind of start your search there. But you don't have to have anything planned. You don't have to know anything. Really, in any of these, you don't really have to know anything other than like what level of service you're most interested in, because the way that we work anyway is Amy handles our partials and our day ofs, and then I handle all of our full service clients. And so there's a different process for consultation and a different process for what we require you to kind of have figured out before you book. So if you're looking at a full service planner, then you don't have to know anything at all. Just find us, right? Find us and call us. And then the difference between a full service planner and a partial planner, because I think a partial planner is probably the most popular package for most folks because it's not quite just a day of.
Yeah, best of both worlds.
Yes, yeah. And the main difference in the way that we do it, and of course everybody's going to be different, but the main difference in general is the booking of vendors and budgeting. Although we include budgeting in our partial because you need help. You need help with that. But for our full service, we are doing everything from like curating lists of vendors for you, helping you stay on budget with each vendor that you choose, and also providing you those options. Some people really like that process, and it's fun and exciting.
Exactly.
And so if you really like that process and you're not overwhelmed by it, then you don't need to pay someone to help you do it, right? Which is kind of the bottom line. But if you are wanting extra help, then that's where full service comes in. Full service also takes on additional meetings and things like that. We have more structured meeting times when you're in the partial and you're in kind of the day of coordination phase. But that is sort of the big difference. It's creating that vendor team, which arguably is the most important thing that you do wedding planning. And for some folks that feels fun to do on their own, and for others they need some help, or maybe you're at a distance and you need that expertise in that area. And then moving into a partial wedding, do you want to talk a little bit about the partial and kind of what that looks like from your perspective on our team?
Absolutely. So with partial packages, we do, the one requirement is pretty much having your venue picked out. So as long as you have that picked out and you have your date set, we can lock you in.
Yeah, because we don't know if we're going to be available. We don't know if the team is open, and we can't. It is so difficult for coordinators, especially if they're not a massive team. If they're a huge team, then I think they can probably make a concession. But if nobody knows when it's happening, then we can't know if we're going to be able to help you with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then with our partial, we then go into budget. So if they just have their venue locked in, we can talk about what's important to them. If they're like, we want to spend most of our budget on florals, but we don't super care about this, then you can kind of adjust the budget for what they need if they're still looking for vendors. Sometimes they come in with all of their vendors and they're ready to go and they just need some help with design. So we do have a design part in our partial package where we talk about what they need for their venue and just like what color schemes look good and what's fun and it's just like a fun brainstorming creative thing. And that's like, I would say, the best part of the partial. That's like the most fun for me, at least.
And it's really fun too for us because we get on a design front, like that's happening in a full service capacity too, but it's really fun from a partial because that's really probably how you learn the most about what a couple is looking for, because they've already chosen all their people. They've already kind of like figured out all of their contracts and everything. So you're sort of like, ooh, what do you want it to look? What are we going to do?
Exactly.
And then it kind of helps develop a list of what you're looking for. So if you fall in love with something and it exists from your florist, like your candles or any supplementary decor, and it already exists from a vendor, that's awesome. But you might not, it might not. Or you like fall in love with some ceremony backdrop and you're like, nobody we know has that.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we have to, now we know we need to look for, and we have to prepare for that. There was this, and I will never forget this. There was a client, and I, like, if you ever, if this client watches this, remind me who you were, because I just remember searching for this thing. I don't remember exactly what year this was, but this bride had fallen in love with a backdrop, and it was so freaking cool. It was like a solid gold backdrop that had a bunch of different tea light like shelves all
Cute.
over the place, and she like had to have it, could not get married without it. It became the thing, you know. Every wedding has a thing, and this was hers. And I mean, I must have looked for like 4 months, because it must have been 2021, because during COVID I was looking for it. And I mean, you couldn't find, like, I couldn't even figure out where the picture that she had of it came from. It was, I was like,
gosh.
Google reverse image searching.
Where did you find this?
Literally, I was obsessed. I was obsessed with it. And I finally found something that was like close enough. And of course we had to order it, and then we had to hire a welder.
Oh.
Yeah, to make it. And it was so cool. It ended up being incredible, and it was exactly what she wanted, but it was like, it was the journey.
Yep.
And that's kind of we're on some of the journey with you. We're on all of the journey with you in full service, but we're on some of the journey with you if you're doing a partial. And then our partials have more of a like meeting schedule. And so we'll go into depth about what we talk about at each one of our meetings, because I think that that's an important video to make. But at 6 months is really when the big work starts at the partial package. It is, you've already done like a walkthrough and a showroom tour, but to choose rentals, but the main work starts at that timeline. So all of our packages, including our day of package, will include working on a timeline with you. And my suggestion to you would be to not book a coordinator if they don't include that, because I don't understand what you would be doing.
Exactly.
You
That's
know.
like the main thing.
Yeah, like it's because it's where everything could get messed up. Is if you have a good timeline or you don't, and your timeline was either right or it wasn't.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't, what are you doing? And we'll talk about that another time too. But the 6 month meeting is all about timeline. The 3 month meeting is so important. I would think it's almost the most important, just for like keeping you on track, because it is like reminding you everything that we're going to do at the 1 month meeting.
Yeah, I always call the 3 month meeting just like the check-in call, because you're
it's
really
the chill
just saying,
vibes.
like, these, like, there's nothing super to do. Probably not a lot of changing has happened, but it's like, this is what we're getting on your radar. This is your homework to do to get done. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about a shot list. What even is that kind of thing? And really diving in. And they always feel like, okay, I have actually something to do. Because usually around the 3 months, you're like, oh,
everything is so
planned.
soon. Yeah.
Like, it's coming up quick, but I know I need to do things, so it's like a great one to check in on. And then the 1 month meeting for me is the most important, because that's like my check-in. That's going over all the little details and really being like, what is actually going on? I need to remember everything, and just detailing the whole day.
And final guest counts are due and all of that kind of stuff. And for most people, the day of wedding package, that's when that starts. Not for us, because that's too stressful. Can't do it. Definitely can't do it. But that is like what most folks' day of looks like, is they're coming in that last month where you've already had to do so much of your own legwork. You're basically transferring it to somebody to make it happen, which for a lot of folks, that's the only thing in budget. That's the only thing, and that's even what they're looking for. And so that is like the bare minimum, I think, package, is having someone who's going to be there on the day, to be able to move through everything with you. As far as like when you book these, I think your full service planner, you should book as your first vendor, I think, for sure. And I think if you're leaning more towards partial, like before 6 months. Most folks with us book 9 months to a year in advance.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah, I would say that.
But like 6 months would still be fine.
Exactly.
High
That's
time.
really when we hit the ground running. So even if it's 6 months out, that's still totally plenty of time for partials. Yeah.
And then I think if you're wanting a day of, there are some people that can turn around a day of in like 2 weeks. It really depends on what it is. We have a 90-day because we just... Y'all, we can't do it. We used to do, what was the tightest one we've ever done? Probably 4 weeks?
Yeah, a month.
Yeah, 4 weeks, it was like 3.5 weeks, I think. And it was insanity. It's
because
just too
if
much.
things have already been planned wrong,
Yeah.
and then you're coming in and it's like, oh, we didn't rent enough tables, there's no more tables left. Like you're just going in and fixing mistakes, and it's just like super stressful for the planner and the couple, and it's just a lot. So
well, and I think a lot of couples go with their own timeline in mind, but you're not thinking that you're booking on July 1st when there's 16 other weddings going on at the same time. And so I think the gift to yourself is no closer than 90 days. I think, and like things happen, there's emergencies, you think you don't need somebody and you decide that you do, like all of that aside, sure. But if you're just going into it with like everything's going fine, definitely 90 days at the absolute latest, I think, because then there's enough time to look at everything. There's not necessarily 14 weddings between you and them. And that is not like, a lot of people kind of look at that and think like, well, I'm just another number. And that's not true, right? Like we are invested in every wedding that we do, but it's reality. Like we do, if I made enough money on one wedding to do my entire salary for the whole year, that would be the raddest thing I've ever done in my life. That would be so freaking cool. But it's just not reality, right? Like there's literally hardly anybody who does one job a year. Like, and if they do, they're certainly not in a business that's like ours.
No,
They're definitely
they're like celebrity wedding, the royal wedding.
Or like, oh my, the royal wedding, you'd never do it again.
Yeah.
You'd be exhausted. But you know, it's that kind of, you'd quit. Afterwards, you'd be like, I never want to do that again.
I never want to think of a wedding ever again.
Never. I'm never setting foot on a wedding property ever again. But that's kind of, I think, the thing to keep in mind is that like there's just a lot of other things going on, and it's not that people aren't dedicated to you. It's that they have to be dedicated to everybody at the same time. Yeah. So those are the biggest differences between the three different things. We'll come back with the things that you should ask your planner, because I think that can be a whole episode in its own, like when you are interviewing people, because not only is it a budget match and you want to trust the caliber of their work, but like you have to get along.
Exactly.
You gotta
have good personalities to that mesh well together.
Yeah, because like I'm a ton, right? Like I'm so much energy. You are so much more chill than I am. It's brilliant. It's amazing. We make a really great team for this. But like I can only be who I am. Okay, I can only be who I am. So I'm either exactly what you're looking for or I'm not. And I never take it personally. I would rather you be with someone who's exactly what you're looking for than choose me because you like my work and then you're like annoyed by me the entire time. Or maybe on the other side, like we just don't gel well creatively. A little bit more insight into the levels of service that most coordinators offer and the like when you should be trying to look for those vendors and deciding exactly what your timeline is for booking those folks. We'll see you next time when we talk about, we're going to have a really fun episode about talking about the different styles of venues and what you should call them, because too many people say like, I want a rustic space, and then they see it and they're like no. Yeah. So
a barn.
Yeah. Yeah. So like knowing what those terms are, knowing what kind of venues you can expect if you were searching for those terms, and then being able to like lend the correct vocabulary to your own styling, I think is a really great asset in wedding planning. So we love you so much. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
Bye.